everyone, and welcome to our Tuesday chat today. I'm extremely excited to welcome Sir James Carlisle, who has written an extraordinary book, and we are here today to chat to him about his book, his life, and everything Antigua.
Tuesday Chats with Nadia Dyson.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. I am so excited about your book, A Life Shared by Extraordinary Circumstances. How long did this book take you to write?
Well, I think it's in excess of 5 years. I mean, the draft was ready actually, just about when COVID struck. I was just about ready to go to print. But then my editor, she got COVID.
Oh no.
So that delayed things for a while. She was suffering quite a bit, struggling a bit. So we eventually finished the book last year.
And so tell me, inside this book, what can people expect to read about?
Well, a lot of surprises. A lot of surprises. My main aim in writing the book was to show in particular our young people that is, you can achieve anything in life, provided you work hard and make the necessary sacrifices. I think life is much easier now than it was when I was growing up. Life was hard, believe me. Some people refuse to even remember those times, and they're ashamed to even repeat what occurred in those days. But life wasn't very easy at all in Antigua. Yeah. But I'm not ashamed of my past, because I never allow my circumstances to define me.
In the book, you talk about your childhood and how you lived in poverty. Can you tell us about that period of your life?
Oh, yes. What I say of myself, I think applies to a lot of people in my age. Sugar was king at the time, and most people in my village anyway worked the land. So we are actually on Jolly Hill Estate, you know that?
Yeah.
You're as an estate agent. And that's named because you have that house, see that house on the hill there? Jolly Hill?
Okay.
Jolly Hill Bluff.
Okay.
That rusty roof. Have you been there?
No.
Beautiful house.
Okay.
It used to be at one time the home of the bishops, Anglican bishops. And then he sold it to Mr. Man called Denkla, who used to live at Mill Reef Club, and he left Mill Reef Club to come and live down here. So as a boy, we used to see all these cars driving up and down the hill, and wish one day we could live there. But it's in a terrible state at the moment. I wish you would persuade somebody to buy it and restore it to its former glory. Yeah, because it's to do it now, it's not, for the ordinary person could never afford to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
So what was your home was at Jolly Hill or in Boland's?
Boland's.
Boland's.
No, I lived in Boland's. When you read my book, you will find it was a place in the village called Toby Holler. I'm sure most modern people don't even know that.
No.
But there was a section in Boland's called Toby Holler, in the alley behind that hill there. So that's where I was born, in a little grass shack, believe it or not. Those days a lot of houses were very small. If you had a house of 10 by 12, that was a large house. Well, you know, the village has changed, of course. The houses were made mainly of wood, and people used to work the land, as I say, and work on the estates, sugar estates. But so money was very hard to come by. So the amount of money you earn at the end of the year was probably enough just to replace one or two floorboards on your house that was rotted. That's as far as you go, you know. So it was really tough. But as I said in my book, I mean, if you lived in a grass house, as we say grass house, a thatch roof house, you were considered extremely, terribly poor. Because you know in England, you have these thatch roof houses, you one up
You are, yeah. It's listed buildings now, yeah.
It's the chocolate box houses. They sell very quickly as soon as they put them on the market. It's beautiful. But of course, they weren't in that class, believe me. It was no running water, no inside toilet. So hygiene and so on was not very great. So you had a lot of diseases in Antigua. You had malaria, you had typhoid, dysentery. All these things were rife. Now those things are missing from Antigua. It's wonderful. The recovery we have made, you know, when you look back, our young people don't understand that the period that we got through of struggle that people had to go through to reach where we are today. So far as schooling is concerned, the education system was not very great.
Was there a school in Boland?
Well, yes, but there was a Methodist school, church school.
Okay.
That's where I attended. That's where have you ever been to
Yeah.
the Methodist? You have seen the Methodist school, church?
I've seen the church, but I haven't
Well,
been
if you
in.
can imagine, about 300 or 400 children in that school.
A lot of children.
Look at the building, and you imagine that number of children packed into a school like that, you know. And of course, when it rained, of course, you know, we used to have most of the classes on the trees outside, and because it was cooler. But when it rained, you had to pack yourself inside. And as I said in my book, there was we used to sing songs, all kinds of songs. And it's incredible, the songs that we sing. All the songs you sing in England at school, we were just singing the same, celebrating May Day, Maypole, all these other things. We're celebrating those schools just as you did in the UK. So in the school, one of the songs we sang was What Are Little Boys Made Of? Frogs and snails and puppy dogs' tails. Have you terrible song. And then the girls would sing, they would sing that verse, and we had to sing, what are little girls made of? Sugar and spice and all that's nice.
Thanks.
Of course, we didn't like it.
No, of course you didn't.
And if we didn't sing, they would, there's a cane for everything.
Cane, yeah.
A cane for coming late, cane, you had to comb your hair properly. You know, as black people, our hair is not always easy to manage. So you had, when you go to school, it's just it sounds a bit racist. You used to put a pencil in your hair, push it through your hair. If you're stuck, can you imagine these things happening?
Gosh, how old were you?
So you used to put lots of Vaseline in your hair, you know, so that it goes through quickly. Of course, these things don't happen nowadays, but children don't realize that going to school was not all that great. And when you leave school, there was not much you could do. There was hardly, apart from going to work in the cane, especially in the villages, if you're from the villages. I had to work in the cane fields and so on, you know. You'd be surprised to know that at one time, no black children could go to grammar school or high school in Antigua. Not in England, I'm talking about.
So, did you go to? You went to grammar school?
No. I'm coming to that.
Yeah.
The very first person to go to high school was a lady called Dame Bridget Harris, who was the Speaker of the House some years ago. You know. But if my father and mother were not married when I was born, and therefore you couldn't, no matter how brilliant you are, you could be a genius, you would never be accepted in school.
Wow.
And I don't think that this just happened against white people. Even the middle class blacks were prejudiced against the poorer black people. You know, one man who was eventually a lawyer, after the rule was changed and school was open to everyone, he said he would not allow his children to be educated alongside the children of profligate mothers. He's a black man I'm talking about. So when they talk about racism and white people, it happened exactly the same racism was here. Black against black. You know, I mean, when I was 11 years old, about 10, 11, somewhere at that age, I passed, because I did well at school, I passed the exam to go to one of the private secondary schools. Because the education system was set up, you had the high school and the grammar school, those were the two top secondary schools. But you had a lot of private secondary school in St. John's. And all the other schools were elementary schools. And you were trained up to a certain level. You know, in elementary school, you did what is called seventh standard examination. They form now, but those days it was first standard, second standard, and so on.
Right, yeah, yeah.
Up to seven. When you reach seven, you get about 15, 16, you take an exam, and if you pass, then you might be qualified to become a policeman, but you couldn't even work in a bank. No black person could work in a bank. You couldn't even get a job in a store. Some people don't like me to talk about these things because they feel that we're above that now, but it's true.
It's history.
And we still have the mentality of some of these people still existing in our country. They hate the fact that poorer people has come to catch up on them now and maybe bypass them. So they hate it. So, yeah, what I say? Yeah, that's right. When the first black girl was hired at Royal Bank of Canada.
Oh wow! I bet that was a
Busloads of
momentous
people
day.
used to come from all over the island just to go and look to see if it was true. It's a black girl working.
Good for her.
Can you imagine? I'm not talking about London. I'm talking about Antigua.
Yeah.
This is the kind of class structure that we have here. You know, so can you imagine bringing children up in that environment, and you're poor? You have no chance. There's no hope for you to get anywhere. You know, thank God. I mean, God gave me a good brain. I was able to get to.
How did you get to where you?
Sometimes I wonder because I had to work very hard, you know. My parents worked the land. In fact, this land that we're sitting on now, we used to plant cotton. Can you imagine? Look out there with all those rocks. Can you imagine anything growing here? But when it's rained, anything will grow. As you see in Antigua, you know, you see how green the place is. So it's sugar cane. Our family grew sugar cane also in another section, and also you had to go and help to cut the cane, help to carry them to the locomotive siding, help to weed the grass. Before going to school, I'm talking about.
Our kids have it so easy.
Yeah, and then after all that, you had to turn up to school looking very tidy, or else you're punished. No, so I said when I was about 10 to 11, I passed an exam, and I was given a scholarship to go to one of the secondary schools in St. John's. But St. John's is only 5 miles away. But those days it was as far as New York. Yeah. Because the transportation and so on, you know, when you go to town, there's a big thing going to St. John's. My parents couldn't afford the bus fare. They couldn't afford to buy the books. They couldn't buy the uniform. No. And I couldn't go.
So you didn't go?
Yeah.
So then what happened?
No, I carried on, but I didn't stay there.
Right.
I took correspondence courses, and so in fact I became a teacher, as you know, in the book. When you are 7th standard, if you pass high enough, they will offer you a job as a pupil teacher. And although pupil teacher, you actually learn on the job, right? School was from 9 to 3, And then after 3, if you're a pupil teacher, then you had to stay home, stay there until about maybe 6 o'clock, doing schoolwork, the principles of teaching, and so on and so forth. So you had first year pupil teacher, second year pupil teacher, third year, and so on. And every year you had to take an exam. And if you pass your exam, then you were given a pay rise. The starting pay was $10 a month. $10 a month.
But in that time, was $10 a lot?
It was a lot in the sense that you could buy a lot. Because when I went to England and I sent money back to my parents, $10 could buy quite a lot, because they didn't have to buy vegetables and so on. They grew these things, so the other items, a lot. But it didn't take you very far. That's it. Yeah. In fact, many of the prominent people in Antigua, some of them have become ambassadors and so forth, they started life as pupil teachers and educators. They started life as pupil teachers. So I didn't stop learning. I never really stopped learning. Even when I was at school, I was taking exam all the way through. And by the time I was in my teens, I was graduating, taking GC by correspondence from England. And these lessons, you had to do your lessons, post them by boat.
Of course. Of course.
And wait until the boat did come back. So that's how you used to.
How long did that take, that boat?
Well, not too bad because it was sugar cane. Yeah? There's a lot of cargo going back and forth, and things being brought from England to sell in or shops. So at least maybe twice a month you'd probably get the boat here. Maybe more. Yeah, so my aim was to work and study. But that wasn't an easy job either, because working in England, you really had to work. It's not just work. My first job was in a factory in east of London, East End.
Can I ask, when did you go, what year did you go?
1960.
1960, okay.
So when I went there, that was 15 years after the war, if you can imagine. There were still a lot of houses being the bombed out buildings, still not rebuilt. When I lived in London. So eventually, one night I was going home from school. I was tired, I was hungry, I was depressed because I thought, well, England is not a very wonderful place. So
Was that in the winter?
In winter, I think it's Charles Kingsley who wrote a poem that says, England is a pleasant place for them that's rich and high, but England is a terrible place for such poor folks as I. I realized what he meant when he wrote those words. Yeah. And as I was hustling home, trying to get home, I saw a light in the distance. And I thought, well, far enough for me to slip across the road. But I was so tired, I misjudged the traffic. And I think the car just missed me by a whisker. And I had to say to myself, well, boy, I have to do something different. I do things differently. I can't work and study at night and so on. Soon afterwards, there was an advertisement in the Observer, Sunday Observer, the Observer, for recruits for the Royal Air Force. Because they were going to stop the national service and do regular soldiers, regular servicemen. And so I applied and got through, took an exam, got through, did my medical, everything, got through very well. And the rest is history, really. It was wonderful. In fact, the other day, when Gemma spoke to me, I asked her where she's from. She said, she's from Shropshire, a Salop. And she said, oh, I've been there. I said, oh, I've been there. And she was absolutely amazed. And I because the place I did my first what called square bashing was in Bridgnorth, which is Shropshire. And he went to school, I think, in Shrewsbury. You know? I used to love to see those black and white buildings in Shrewsbury, beautiful, beautiful place. She was absolutely amazed. And what amazed her was during one day when they were, during my training, there was a period, one day when we had a sports day company, and I used to be a reasonably good athlete. I used to be 100 yards those days, you see, 100 yards, 200 yards, and long jump. And I did very well. But the person in charge of the event, believe it or not, was a young officer from Johnson's Point in Antigua. Can you imagine?
No.
I felt so proud.
Yeah.
One of my countrymen, you know. And he was also the champion, not only the Air Force, but also of the combined services, that is Army, Navy, Air Force. He was also champion. And in my long jump, I think I did about 19 feet. And he said he believed I could do far more if I was properly coached, because I got very good elevation with my jump. But then he went on to become a very high officer in the Royal Air Force. And I'm talking about Johnson's Point.
Yeah, Johnson, just down the road.
Just down the road. So a lot of people are surprised. I mean, one of these days I'll show you some picture of during the war of Antiguans going to England to fight. From here. Yeah. They had a band driving, playing in St. John, marching down to the boat. It's in St. John's. That's to commemorate all the people who were killed in World War I. Beautiful.
Where is that, in St. John's? In the middle?
Near the cricket ground. In the middle, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Not far from Government House.
Yeah, no, yes.
And when I was Governor General, I discovered there were a lot of Antiguans also who had died and whose name had not been on it. And I actually got the British High Commissioner to finance a new plate
And
to
add
have
the
those names
names.
put on. So the
Nice.
most recent names, those are Antiguans who actually died during the war.
That's very good.
So when you went to England, some of them were saying, you should go back where you come from. They didn't realize that we were part of Britain. Yeah. And I used to tell people, I say, where I come from? I say, I come from here. I say, all those buildings there is my foreparents' blood was shed to build those buildings. You know, I was very thirsty. You know, but I have to say that I love the English folks. I find they were very, well, you think that they're very kind, especially very charitable. And they like the underdog. If you are the underdog, they like to support you. You know, they did well. You know. So every adult English person I met, I used to have conversations with what England was like and so on. And of course, they wanted to know where I came from. When I was asked where I came from, I told them Antigua. Nobody had ever heard of Antigua, but they knew about Antigua. But no Jane Austen's novel, Mansfield Park, mentioned it a few times, so they should have known. You know, we have to credit Vivian Richards.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
Andy Roberts.
Yeah.
When they became famous
Legends.
cricketers in
Yeah.
England, and he was playing for Hampshire, and he was playing for Somerset.
Yeah.
They were doing so well, so the exploits were published in the papers, and they really spread Antigua around.
Yeah.
You know. I enjoyed growing up. There was much to learn. It was a great learning curve, because coming from where I am in Antigua, it's a backward society at that time, to a developed society. There was a lot to learn, but I'm a fast learner.
You mentioned dialect in your book.
Yes.
How do you explain that to people?
You know, once there was a debate at the university with Oxford and Cambridge on Saturday nights, I can't remember what year. And one was that immigration, Commonwealth immigration, is good for Britain. One was for, one was against. And the one guy, I can't remember which university, but he said he was for, because having West Indians in England has changed life so much, you know. I mean, first of all, people used to wear only dull colors, but when we came, it was bright colors. Nowadays, the English, you go to England, the English, everybody in bright colors. They didn't smile a lot. I think we taught how to laugh. You know, so he said when he was a little boy, they used to go on school with the bus, on the school bus. And their trick was to wait until the bus door was closing to dash through the automatic.
To see if he can get caught.
I said this West Indian conductor watched them every day and didn't say a word. And one day he said, boy, if you keep doing that, you get your face full of glass. He said that message brought home the danger. It's a very forceful language dialect. You understand? And so of course some people speak it when they don't want you to know what they're talking about. Yes. But when you live long enough, you'll learn. And of course, it's not a language. It's a shame, really. I think it should be a language because it's something that we were inherited, and we were taught it was you're speaking badly if you speak dialect when we were kids. Yeah, so we had to correct ourselves and learn to speak proper English. So much so, and I forget most of my dialects.
Yeah, I haven't learned any dialect actually. No. But my team,
it's a very emphatic. It emphasizes things a lot, you know. So I'm not against dialect, but of course, if you should speak proper English too, because the world today, English is the universal language. Yes. And if you want to get anywhere, you've got to learn English. And I find the English language a very beautiful language myself. I like English literature.
You mentioned you spent a lot of time in the UK in the Air Force. Are there any memories that you can share with us?
Wonderful, lots of wonderful memories. That was a tough life as well, great discipline. But two of the things I remember, after I finished my square bashing at RF Bridgenorth, I was sent to RF Freckleton, which is up in the north of England. But Freckleton is between Preston and between Preston and Blackpool. Okay. So every weekend we used to go to Blackpool, have fun there. And after I was graduated from the medical, because I was trained as a medic establishment, I was sent to Ireland, as Northern Ireland, not Era, Northern Ireland, which is Ulster. And I was so excited, you know, just traveling to another part of Britain. Again, they were very poor compared to England. They were in a very poor state, but of course they have recovered a lot now. And just before Christmas, the same year, they had a Christmas party, and the doctor's wife, Mrs. Moore, asked me if I was going home for Christmas. I mean, my pay was 5 guineas a week. You know what 5 guineas a week is?
Not very much.
£5, 5 shillings. But it sounds small, but then you didn't have to buy food, pay rent, so you could actually save, and I could send somebody to my parents. And I told them, no, you know, first of all, I was the last to arrive, so I was going to, they're going to put me on duty, because the other people want to go home for Christmas. And Mrs. Moore invited me to Christmas dinner at their home. I told her I couldn't come because I was on duty. And she said, oh, wait, I'll talk to Paddy, he's her husband. And so on Christmas morning, I thought he was joking, I didn't take it seriously. The phone rang and she was on the phone. And she said, are you coming for dinner? I said, no, I'm on duty, I can't leave. She said, hold on a minute, I'll talk to Paddy. came back and said, "Oh, it's all arranged. He'll pick you up at 2 o'clock." So I went. It's a lovely farmhouse, old farmhouse in the country, and they had a huge number of children. I'm sure there were about 14 or 15 children. They were Catholics, so they didn't believe in birth control. And I had those days I fancied myself as a guitarist. I took my guitar to England with me. So we used to sing all these songs, when the Mountain of Mourn, when Irish eyes just are smiling. You know these songs?
No.
Oh, you know these songs? And when I was leaving, they were so kind to me. When I was leaving, I actually gave the guitar to the boys.
Oh, that's very kind.
But they'd never seen a black person before, first of all.
Really?
That was a novelty.
Because you're in
So when I
Ireland.
got there, everybody wanted to sit on me, sit on one leg, on my shoulder, my head, all over. One little boy said, "Oh, I wish I had hair like yours, because I won't have to comb mine." So I had to tell him, I said, "I spent a lot of time combing my hair." And I think he was very disappointed. Yeah. One of them was rubbing his hand and said, "Oh, I'd like to see if I could change my color." Not nice kids, you know. So I had a wonderful time, and after that I was a regular visitor to their home. So that's pleasant memories I have of Ireland. Even at that time, although they didn't have active fighting, there was simmering underneath the surface, the IRA against the British troops, so we had to be very careful when we go into Belfast and so on. And so those are
Fond memories.
wonderful memories.
And how did you become a dentist?
Well,
And why?
as I said, as a medic,
Yeah.
I wanted to become anything because I started life at the bottom, if you like. I mean, if the opportunity arises, thankfully, I mean, I feel I could learn anything. This is my.
Great.
This is my.
I believe that's true. You can.
So one day when I was RF Manby, I was in Lincolnshire at the time, the College of Air Warfare, and the dentist assistant was ill, and he asked the medical officer if he could send one of his staff to assist him. So they sent me, and that's really what happened. Like, I was so fascinated by all these instruments and the way he did his work. You know, it was fantastic. I thought, well, look, I think dentistry seemed like a good profession.
You got great teeth.
And so that is how it all started, really. You know. So when I came out the Air Force, I went to, because I only had O-levels at the time, my A-level science courses, I passed, and I was granted admission to the University of Dundee in Scotland. I did a 5-year course there. Wow, okay. And after graduation, I worked for a while. And when I felt confident, I felt confident enough because, thank God, I think I was born with confidence. This was a black man in a little town called Perth. This is a middle-class, white city. Have you been to Perth?
I have not, no.
And I built up a beautiful practice there.
Nice. Good.
Yeah.
And when did you come back to Antigua?
Well, it was almost a dream. Well, in fact, when I left, believe me, and you'll see the reason why when you read the book, I don't think I wanted to come back here.
Okay.
Because there were no prospects.
Yeah.
You know, the chances of getting anywhere was grim. So I think I had any great plans. But as time passed, you know, you get a bit homesick. And like, especially my mother was still alive and wanted to see her. My father died, of course, died when I was 5.5. He was in the army, British Army. And so towards the end of it, I mean, But when you read my book, I think you'll get a better perspective. It's difficult to tell you exactly how it happened because a lot of things came together. I mean, I was married to a Trinidadian girl when I was in the military. But that didn't work out. And I eventually married to this Welsh girl in England. And she was dying to come to Antigua, that's the other thing. She just loved Antigua. When she came here, it was hell for her.
Why was it hell?
Oh, well, when you read it, I think you're going to be ashamed of people.
Okay. We'll save that bit for the book. And how did you meet Lady Emma?
Well, I came back here, and after what happened, that marriage broke down because she had to go back because she was so depressed all the time. She was being harassed, really. All because there were not many dentists on the island. There were 3 dentists, and we came in, and one of them in particular, who was a very powerful guy, thought he controlled the whole island.
Yeah.
And so he started
doing
doing things to harass my wife. He couldn't do anything to me because since I was born here. Well, she got so depressed, it was funny. But read the book.
Yeah. Well, you can find it all in here.
I feel ashamed of some of the things that happened. So, as I say, I lived here for a while on my own. And I think my wife, Emma, she came to me as a patient years later. And I think it was a wisdom tooth. You know, when you have wisdom teeth out, what happens?
That's really painful.
You usually get pain.
Really painful.
So the following day, I paid a visit to her to find out if she was okay. Up to this time, she think my visit was not clinically motivated.
You got to use what you've got, right?
We became friends, and developed from there. She's a wonderful wife, and she's a wonderful person, very empathetic. I mean, as Governor General, she did as much work as I did. She was just sitting down. She changed people's attitude to disability. The disabled school called Adult School. She changed people's attitude to old people of the Finance Institute and so on. She did so many wonderful things. You know, we had one case where some children had HIV/AIDS, not AIDS, HIV, and one of them said, "Oh, I think I'd like to kill myself." Little child, 9 years old, but the way her people were treating her badly. And I told her, I think we should bring her home to live with us. And she actually came and lived with us for a whole year. My children have to commend them. They didn't treat her anyway, because you can't catch AIDS by hands. You know how AIDS is transmitted. But of course, those days people had this odd idea that even if you walk within a distance.
It was different.
And we paid for her school. We paid for. At 9, she didn't know phonics, you know, for learning to read. By the time she was 10, she could read the Bible. Bright girl, bright girl. And I can't say much because these things are sensitive and you don't want to bring attention to even the people concerned, you know. So, you know, those are the people that we actually focused on, people that needed help. And don't tell me if you're a strong young man walking about to come and beg me for money. I wasn't into that. But if somebody is needy, and those are the people who are needy, need help. We changed people's whole attitude in those 14 years. I mean, it's easier now. but the attitude was totally primitive, you know.
I see a picture of you and the Queen in this book. Tell me about you and meeting the Queen.
Oh, I met her many times.
What was she like?
Wonderful. Wonderful. I mean, on one occasion, I was in Watford because my children went to boarding school in Watford. And one of the ladies, I was going to Buckingham Palace, she said, when you go to Buckingham Palace, tell the Queen hello for me. So during the course of our conversation, I said, Your Majesty, I don't know how to tell you this, but this lady gave me a message to give you. And she laughed. She thought it was so funny. I thought she was such a wonderful person. And Princess Margaret. Princess Margaret was a great friend of my wife. They all became very good friends. You know history of Princess Margaret and Antigua.
I do vaguely,
Yeah, when she was in love with Townsend, they sent her overseas to think about whether to abandon the royalty or go on. Everything changed. So many people divorcing now. She couldn't divorce. She could, because he was a divorcee. She's the one that actually presented our instruments of independence when it was being handed over.
Okay.
You know, we liked it very much. We used to go to Kensington Palace, have lunch with her from time to time.
What was your proudest moment of being Governor General?
Oh, it's difficult to say. There are so many. Many. I think one of the, perhaps I think, that stands out for me was that no one knew me very well for a start, because I'd been away and grew up a man, and so people didn't know me too well. And so when I was appointed, who is he? You know, he don't even come from here. You know what that means? I don't even come from Antigua. Yeah. So I had a struggle with that to prove. I had a lot to prove to them, and I think that we did a good job. I mean, you only have to see if I walk downtown there, I can't go 100 yards without meeting somebody saying, "Oh, you did so and so. Oh, remember when you came to our school?" Some little boy, he was at the boys' training school, like Skerrit, we call it Borstal here. And he was very rude, but very bright. And I actually invited him to lunch one day in the official car, the flag flying, you know, and he thought this was a wonderful thing. You know, the boy, he became a changed boy after that. You know. But anyway, I was saying I think the proudest moment is after I gave my speech, because nobody knew. Everybody was expecting. They didn't know what he's going to say. You know, because of course I'm a dentist. I'm not a politician. And when I went back to Government House after the ceremony, we had various people coming, congratulating us and shaking hands and signing the book and so on. I suppose the most important visitor was my mother. And she She's a woman who got pregnant when she was 17. That's when she got pregnant with me. Wow. Yeah, my father went to the army, and she had had a terrible, difficult life. And you know, she said to us, she had, who would have thought that I could produce a governor? Because I felt so
That's okay. She was so proud of you.
She was. I was glad. And I came back at a time when I was able to help her and provided with all provided with her needs while she was still alive, you know. I'm sorry about that.
No, I mean, well done. Like, she's so proud of you.
She couldn't read. My mother couldn't read. I'm not ashamed to say it. Because she couldn't go to school.
God.
When I became a teacher and I discovered it, I taught her to read. She wasn't a brilliant reader, but she was a genius at figures. You know what I mean? So I think that was my very proudest moment when my mother felt so good when she came to Government House that day.
Should be proud of you now, having written this book as well.
Yeah, I know.
You know, it's a huge achievement for anyone to write a book.
I don't know what anybody say. I mean, I think I did the virtual impossible. When you read the book, you'll see why.
Yeah.
You know, I had so many hurdles, but thank God, I think I was given that kind of resilience, built-in resilience, that never gives up on anything. When the gang gets tough, I still press on, you know.
It's a good thing to teach the younger generation that, you know, you can come from nothing.
Well,
and
I mean, nowadays, your children are so wonderful. They get buses, not only they go to school, they can get buses to take them to school. They're not debarred from going to secondary school. We went to, we have a branch of the university here now. Tertiary education is available right at the doorstep. A lot of children are getting educated. But even that is a sore point with some people, you know, because the people from the lower class echelons of society weren't supposed to get up there. Only the ones that were privileged, you know. And talk to them who are privileged now, they're nothing.
So you've come from a shack in Boland to, you know, homes in the UK, and then when you came back to Antigua, you're in English Harbour, and you've been in Jolly Harbour 20 years. Yeah. Obviously now there's quite a lot of development going on in Jolly Harbour. I mean, what's your thoughts on Jolly Harbour? How have you found your 20 years living here, and in comparison to English Harbour?
Well, I have roots here. I have memories here. Yeah. I mean, when I was a kid, I used to have to come here and pick cotton during my holiday, you know, my parents' cotton during the holiday time. And I used to have to watch the sunset going down there. And I didn't even realize that I said it. But one day, an elderly lady since I'm living here, I said, I see you got what you wanted. So I said, what is that? He said, when you were a little boy, you said that you were going to have 5 children and live on Ginger and build a house in Ginjari. We call this hill there Ginjari.
Well, that's manifestating, isn't it? Wow. Wow.
This old lady told me that. You said that when you were a little boy.
Gosh.
You know, so I have roots here. It means something to me. It's not just a house. It's not just a piece of land. But when I look and see all the rocks in this land, to know that your parents had to struggle and labor in the hot sun just to earn a living, and all they get is a pittance for what they work. It's quite incredible that they were even able to survive. Yeah. You know, and this land here, it's in my grandmother's land. My grandmother's mother bequeathed. In fact, let me go further back than that. The man who was living up on the hill there, one of the owners was a man called T.E. Peters, who was an Englishman. And he used to drive his horse down to the beach, he and his daughter, called Nancy. And you know where Jolly Castle is now? Yeah. And we used to call it Nancy Rock. Why? One day, that used to be so dark when we were kids. We were afraid to walk past the trees. And one day, something frightened her horse. She fell off and broke her neck. died there. So it was called Nancy. We said in dialect, a Nancy Rock. We really mean Nancy's Rock. That's what where Jolly Castle is now. Now he used to ride his horse across the estate down to the bridge, and my grandfather used to be working the land. And it's hard work. Sometimes rain don't come, and hard things don't go well. And T. Peters told him, he said, oh, why don't I? And at the time, they owned where Jolly Beach is. They actually owned that beach land. He says, why don't we swap you some arable land that will grow things rather than you have to struggle to make a livelihood. And so they agreed. Oh, wow. That's how we came to that. They swap. At the time it was a good deal, yes, because agriculture was the main thing. Yeah. You know, my auntie told me it should have been 66 acres, but I could only find 23. You have 11 acres that go right up to the village. Where this yellow house is there, there's another 11 acres there, and this area here. So when the gentleman told us we were squatting, sorry.
You're squatting?
It made me feel extremely mad. Yeah. And do you like all the new changes and everything that's happening in Jolly Harbour? Well, I have to say I do admire the fact that they're spending money and improving the place. At one time, the place had run down, you know, and all they were doing was just selling out the family silver, you know, just selling bits. But at least I met Mr. Gillespie. I think he's a very nice man. Yeah. And he has plans to for Jolly Harbour. I mean, Mr. Ahart and I used to get on well. But a lot of the agreements we had were not written agreements, and so that created problems too, because...
Back in the day, handshake agreement.
Exactly. You met him?
Yeah. No, I didn't meet him, sorry.
Very nice man, very nice man. I mean, he married one of the Habsburgs, royalty from Austria, okay, and they never ceased to remind him that he was a commoner. And eventually they got divorced. And he married an English lady. So she died. And they only had one son. And would you believe it? The one son died. In fact, when they were doing Jolly Harbour, he belonged to Greenpeace. And he used to demonstrate against the development. Of Jolly Harbour? It was spoiling the environment. So I know every inch of this place. I can tell you everything that happened.
And is it all in your book?
Yeah.
I actually can't wait to read this. Thank you so much for sharing wonderful information about what's in your book. It's been emotional, and I would imagine that the read is an emotional journey as well, so I'm looking forward to that. If you would like to get a copy of Sir James Carlisle's book, then Luxury Locations office will have some. There's also details below of other places that you can get the book. Thank you again, and I can't wait to read this book. Thanks everyone for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this Tuesday chat. If you like our videos and you want to see more, please subscribe to the channel below. Thanks for watching.